to avoid the lawsuits. Isn't that the real answer? The Republican Party, the contract with America, the right wing, speaking for the establishment, speaking for industry, speaking for corporations. You know, what's good for General Bull Moose is good for the USA, we used to say in the 50s. I mean, isn't that what it's really all about?
There's no doubt that that's true. I guess what's disturbing to a lot of people who have looked at this subject, including our reporters at U.S. News, is that the number of frivolous cases, the cases that come from nowhere and have no meaning but tie up the system in many serious ways and tie up businesses and keep good products from coming on the market, keep good drugs from being manufactured. There's a real penalty being paid.
But do you have any statistics on a correlation and all those things that you just said, that we know that frivolous lawsuits affect products being introduced into the market or have an impact on consumers? I mean, aren't we as a society, don't we pride ourselves and expressing ourselves and having an open system to the marketplace, to the legal system, and talking about it? And if there's a frivolous lawsuit that's filed, we talk about it. Isn't there always a danger that our hand-wringing is going to turn into something that's worse?
But there are
I just don't see the correlation.
Are there real penalties for people bringing frivolous lawsuits?
There are very serious penalties.
But you never hear about that.
You may not hear about them.
Well, then perhaps they're not being exercised.
They're being exercised very heavily.
Well, be specific. I mean, you never ever hear.
Rule 11 in federal court, Stuart will tell you about it.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in penalties assessed against lawyers. In many cases, the lawyers are being abused, I think, rather than the other way around, with very serious penalties for frivolous lawsuits. But what a frivolous lawsuit is in the eyes of the beholder. And there are a lot of terrible drugs that have gotten on the market because the penalties for bringing them on the market are not very strong, and it's very difficult to stop it.
But Lee, isn't one of the issues with the contract, and we'll talk more about it in the next segment, that they don't want to see corporations penalized for mistakes that weren't anticipated? In other words, somebody who sells a product, a Kmart that sells a product, can be sued in addition, even though they're not the product manufacturer?
You know, that is a giant step backward. You know, one of the great things about the development of American society was products liability, the assault upon the citadel, the ability to sue everyone in the chain of manufacture.
But aren't they just looking for the deepest pocket, Lee? Frequently, aren't they looking for just the deepest pocket that they can sue?
I think that goes on a lot, of course.
Well, you don't look for someone with no money to sue. You really want to, but you have to have the liability, too. You can't just sue anyone. First of all,
but what does a Kmart or some department store do? They're not in the business of testing products.
You know, but you know, they are part of the problem because they have an insurance company that has lawyers on the payroll. And the lawyers on the payroll don't want to settle the case because they're getting paid by the hour. And they're going to bring the case closer to trial. Now, I would venture to guess that if you did a cost-benefit analysis, the insurance companies can show that that method of handling these cases is beneficial to their insured. So there is a fallacy. Equally, I think, suspect is the hand-wringing that goes on about medical malpractice claims. In fact, although I don't do this work, statistics are that 75 to 80% of medical malpractice cases result in a defendant's verdict. The medical profession doesn't want you to know that. They don't want society to know that. And I'm sure you've been at a cocktail party, and you have, Stu,
sure,
where some doctor has said, wait a second, you're a lawyer, what about, and I say, just a second, I don't do medical malpractice work. But in fact, that's a, and in fact, the numbers are down.
But Lee Rainey, you found that OBGYNs are being sued every day, left and right, almost two-thirds.
Of course, more than two-thirds, Pat. And every baby that's born with a birth defect, the doctor is sued, even though in the vast majority of those cases, it has nothing to do with the doctor's fault.
But how do we know that that's the case? I mean, isn't there a blue wall among medical professionals? How do we know?
Objective studies have really shown that it's had very little effect on doctors. Of course, some premiums have gone up, and they've passed it on to patients. But in childbirth, there are mistakes made. And
okay, we're going to talk about that, and I hope to hear from a couple of doctors who don't think that those premiums going up is such a great thing. We'll talk about that when we return. And up next, we'll find out exactly what the GOP is proposing. So stay with us when we come back.
Do you have an idea for a new product or invention that you'd like to submit to companies?
No, that won't be a problem. Okay.